already all the way close to
Oh, I
10
was
feet.
thinking of the smaller
Right.
streets.
But the smaller streets, so that would be, take care of that. The smaller streets for my street, I'm on Bartlett and Kensington, I don't even have 10 feet. I mean, I might have 10 feet in my front yard on that street. And so again, if there's 18 feet, if everybody's front yard, everybody would be allowed to build a porch. Some people probably already have one. If there's not, if there's 15 feet, you're not gonna be able to build a porch. So what is that for those blocks that, you know, already are, you know, only 15 feet from the street? What's acceptable, I guess is the question. Because the ones that are already set back with the big vistas, you can only encroach 8 feet. So I don't know what the answer is, but for those, do we want to allow porches on blocks that have fronts that are pretty narrow? And I'm for the perspective of yes, but again, maybe, I don't know what that exact number of, what do you feel comfortable on those type of blocks as having enough space that you don't feel like the house is on top of the street? Yes.
I mean, I guess I would go back to the older code. I mean, I think a patio is fine. I wouldn't want some covered structure blocking, you know, because it's still, if you have a patio, it still looks visible. On the other hand, for the home like the one there, I wouldn't think it would be a big deal to cover just their stoop. I just wouldn't want a ginormous porch, you know.
Right. It wouldn't be enclosed, but you mean a covered.
Well, even with the pillars, I'm just saying, so I guess technically it would be called a porch still, because it would have the pillars, but just to, so that somebody didn't have to sit in the rain while you were answering the door.
Commissioner Kylie Miller and then Commissioner Dan.
I don't, looking at the various photos, it seems like porches, it's like a couple steps up from the ground. So like in this case, maybe it would be more suitable for like a front yard patio, which we did approve and the board passed last year, I think. So I think some of it has to do with the architecture, you know, what's appropriate for that entryway. If the porch is out the entryway, but it's just, you know, a few inches off the ground, it doesn't really seem appropriate architecturally or aesthetically to go out on a porch onto the front of the house there. You know, some houses would look fabulous. I think there are a couple examples of that, and some just work.
Okay, Commissioner Dan?
Yeah, I think everybody's saying here they love porches, and I love porches, I think it's great. So I think we can, as we work on a direction to get more porches, but also it's, you know, I agree with Eric a little on some things. But there's at the end of the day, just like you were saying, you want a little uniformity, you don't want ones jutting out, and the process we have now, I know GIS isn't accurate down to the inch, but if you go in front of the design review board and you've mapped out, hey, this is what my block looks like, this is how far the setbacks are, this is what I like to do, they're pretty good about like, okay, that looks great. They're not saying, it looks like you're about 4 inches off. I just think the process we have there seemed fine, and I think where we ended up, the last discussion was more about materials and pavers and all that stuff. We were talking about patios. It's always been okay, so.
The only difference is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's not zoning, it's not
Correct.
law. It's a design review is very subjective, so you could make those, it's 4 inches off.
Yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day though, okay, I guess that's fair.
And I'm just talking aloud again, there are ways, so you could say, you know, you're allowed to have an 8-foot porch, but in no case shall it be closer than 10 feet to the lot line. And you could say, and in no case shall it be more than 15 feet from your adjacent neighbor's primary facade. So like, if by chance you have an anomaly house where you're like, you know, 6 feet and they're like 8 feet, then that house is all of a sudden, well, now I can't have them because of that condition. So there's a lot of ways to work this. I may need some time to like think of it, and the best way to do is to show you examples, right? So I can show you an example of a block that the average setback is, you know, 20 feet and how that would impact. And there's some houses that are, you know, close together. There's ways to do it. I'm glad that I'm not doing the direction as the 10% rule. I'd rather have the more.
The only thing that concerns me is that can be addressed, and I think we can work to get there. But it sounds like there's some commissioners that even if the houses are right next to each other, that might be a problem. Like, it's not the right, you know, you might block somebody's view, and that's getting very, that's a different
Well, I don't know that I heard the next to each other is the problem as much as the one set back from the well. Is that true, or is that?
picture too.
So looking at the
But
picture.
that one's kind of in front of the other
Example, the front doors of those two houses are very different depths.
Right.
So it's not a fair comparison to say, well, this guy can have a 15-foot porch from the looks of it, and this one can't have any, because the doors are at different depths.
Well, and are we automatically saying that a porch can extend the entire front of the house, or are we limiting it to a certain area around the entry door? I mean, if you're saying that it can only cover 20% of the front or something like that, then it's most likely it might be on one side, but not on the other.
And I'd probably recommend against that, just because the aesthetics of some houses, like the one on the top here that we're looking at, I see nothing wrong with that porch extending the whole thing. It's, you put a string out there, you sit up, like that's what the value of that porch is. Yeah, some houses, you know, the one in the middle perhaps, yeah, the value might just be to add something where you don't get wet while you're fumbling with your keys to get in, right? I feel like it's an aesthetic match on the house style that, once again, Durham would be most appropriate to be.
Again, is there a difference in description between just a roof mounted to the house, a
Right.
peak or a roving arch versus posted down that you have to fence?
Yeah, I do have a note here, porch versus entryway, kind of something like that, if that zoning wise might be more
Like an
palatable.
entry canopy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like my block is full of entry canopies.
The bottom house,
Anything on them?
yeah, the bottom house on page 31, I think is what you're talking about, and that's lady was having a covered landing. So I guess maybe that's the difference, we just, the covered landing where you go up and you land in front of the front door. So that's not a porch, it's just a covered landing. Something different.
Page 30?
Page 31, the bottom
It
house.
still has railing and posts.
Yeah, it connects to.
I've got zero,
connects to
nothing pulling that up.
It's still a porch. You can sit on that.
I mean, this is the beauty of Shorewood, we've got tons of house styles, and
Right.
so a one-size-all-fits code is not gonna be easy to think about, but that's where I would lean on design review.
Say no.
I would, right, so that's the problem, it's easier to say no than it is to allow somebody
Absolutely,
to do it,
that's the
so
point.
that is the value of design review boards, if we give them parameters to work within. I do trust, you know, in my workings with them, that they do look out for the aesthetic value of the neighborhood, and that's their role, and so if for some reason we find that not to be the case, we could at least modify that, but under the current, you know, procedure, I would just note that they do review those things, so it's not.
So,
Does
I guess,
anybody have an objection to the, even the porch structure, but just in front of the door, to make like a little entryway? I mean, couldn't we allow that in any case?
if you separate that out, you're saying that's a
Yeah.
separate part of the zoning, yeah, I don't have a problem.
Create a new category.
Right, as I said, porch versus entryway, or whatever the terminology might be.
Believe me, someone on this
Yeah.
board will, because they're gonna say, oh, but you can sit there.
Well, okay, it's
That's okay, but.
But a cantilever versus no post, and that's an easier way to separate them, so then you're not getting into space and
Yeah.
dimensions.
But, yeah, I mean, it seems like there's less objection to that. We could say, and, you know, if you want to put that on, that's fine, but then once we start talking about porches, then, you know, maybe.
Commissioner.
On that example you keep using, I mean, that's just a house, right? That's not a house that somebody came and said, I want to put a cover on this. It just happens to be a picture of an example that's being used, correct? Because I'm wondering, do people come and say, like, I want to put a cover on this? I mean, is this an issue for us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, like with the example you're using that we keep talking about.
that one,
I mean, I get, like, people want to build a porch and people want to cover stuff, but when people have a little stoop that's even with the ground, do they come and say, I'd like to build a cover?
if it has a roof structure, they need a permit for it, and we would currently not allow that.
But I'm saying, this isn't someone that came to you, right? This
I
is
mean,
just.
not that particular house, no, if that's.
All right.
And once again, this was put together, you know, by Erica, so I don't know the origins of how these houses were picked or whatever. I just assume they're just random houses of different styles. I don't know that person wanted a porch per se, but it's a different style that we have in the village.
So I would, in order to wrap it up, at some point, we are gonna have to give direction to Bart whether we want him to take a stab. I fully trust Bart's ability to take what we've said tonight and to potentially do that, but it's up to the commission. I do wanna just say that, again, when we're talking about zoning codes in such an urban neighborhood, it comes down to value. It really does, in any community, and it's, do you think there's more value in allowing porches in your community than not? And it's easier, as Commissioner Kyler Miller said, to say no to anything, but again, if that's the value, do you value what porches would bring? Trustee Amenta has made the greatest point of, we need tax value in this village very badly right now, for our school systems, for many reasons, our roads, our sewers. And if it can add value to our residential stock is like 18 times the value of our commercial stock in this village. And so anything we can do to add value to residential properties would really accentuate our tax value in the village by a lot. And secondly, for other reasons, there are values to porches. So there's never going to be, like the private property, it's kind of like solar panels. You're going to block someone's sunlight. So then you have to weigh what value are you placing, because it's very hard to place on a zoning director to try to say case by case. It's got to be a very consistent rule, and then you've got DERB who would do the design review. So just think about that as we go through the process of what is the overreaching goal, so that we don't get too far into the weeds. That's what our administration is here for. That's all I have to say. So any other comments and discussion tonight?
Well, I just kind of, this is a little off, but, you talk about that light and area and that green space look, and like, my neighbors have hedges all the way down the driveway. You never guarantee that
Exactly,
there.
yep,
You can't see down here.
Yeah, granted, you can cut down a hedge, but it's not, and you cut down. So I'm questioning that that's what holds whether you can have a porch or not. Just doesn't seem, and granted, you want all your houses kind of at the same air setback and some uniformity, place for people to say hi to each other, but we don't have that, so I'm all for porches.
Yeah, Florida, I grew up in Florida, and so the suburbs, it was very easy when you're starting a new community to set your zoning code because you could build new, but it was really hard in Milwaukee for us to do that as well.
One option is if the house is going to be, we're hitting up to the 10 feet, you could reduce the amount of coverage they're allowed, right? Like reduce, like they couldn't just put in a lot more poles and walls.
Or just make them scale it back,
Yeah, or
if it was possible.
cantilever roof only within some range.
They could always do a patio.
Right. There's a million options, and you've got, probably 5,000 different kind of houses, right, so it'd be interesting. But I do feel like I have good enough direction to understand that we do want porches, and there are some regulations that I think I can work with. Just my style is going to be less is more when it comes to writing these in there, and if we need to add something back into it, feel free to recommend it when I send a version back around. But when it comes to code writing, to me, I think less is more, as long as what's in there covers what you got. The more you have in there, the more chance you have for error, and that's kind of where that last version, I think, went too far perhaps.
Do you think you would break out another category, like a?
Yeah, I could definitely look into it. I'd be curious if any other place has something like that, where under certain circumstances, an entryway versus a porch. I don't know offhand that I've seen that, but it probably does exist.
I think that's gonna get tricky unless you just take the pillars away and it's cantilever, just because a porch is a covered area with, things that hold it up. So like this picture, it's gonna be difficult, because the picture here on page 30J, that's a covered area, take away the deck on the top. But yet you could sit, so I guess you'd have to do the dimensions of how big is your door and how much further over there would be ways.
Yeah, like I said, I'm going to go under the premise of less is more, but if I can find something that does make sense, I'm open to it. But it is difficult to cover all cases, that's for sure.
Question about logistics, so let's say we decide we're all on board, we've got a good draft. At some point then, do we have a public hearing, or is that held over until the matter comes before the village board?
I believe the public hearing is here, but Bart, correct me.
My understanding is to get the village board, since the ordinance change, we could definitely, I think we could have one, it's not required to have it here, but the planning commission could have one if, and get people's opinions at this level. It's not required, because the planning commission just recommends changes to the ordinance, whereas the board will adopt them. But if the planning commission wants to have more public input on it, I don't think that's a bad idea. If we get to a point where we're comfortable and we have,
Just so there aren't neighbors around the village freaking out, like, my neighbor's putting up this big porch, I didn't know anything about this.
there definitely will be a public hearing, for sure, and that would, at this point, be at a minimum at the board, but we could consider additional. I mean, I can put it in the manager's memo, I can put it on Facebook, we can get comments outside of a public hearing, once we have something that we're ready to share, I think probably makes the most sense.
Okay, does anybody, do we need to make a motion or anything, or do you good with direction?
I'm good.
Okay, so just come back to us with something in
Yep.
draft form?
Yep.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks for the history, to the planning commissioners who are here. That helps a lot. Is that our last, yes, Director Bart?
Number 7 is schedule the next meeting. Unfortunately/fortunately, I am on vacation on April 23rd, so I will not be able to attend the regularly scheduled meeting if you want to hold that day. If we do have a meeting, which it sounds like we'll at least have porch stuff to talk about, I'm suggesting if April 30th would work with people, or we can work somewhere else in there, but I can't make the 23rd, is all I'm saying. So if we need to poll someone later on, we can do that too, but if there's any initial thoughts.
I'm probably going to be gone the 23rd as well,
Me
because
too.
of my mother, so if we could do then is it the following week? That'd be
Following,
great.
Tuesday would be third, would be the 30th.
Mhm. Would that be okay? Is there?
Good on the 30th.
Okay, that sounds
So let's move that. Okay, trustee Mental then.
There's 8 future agenda items.
Oh, hello. So next item on our agenda is future agenda items. Does anyone have anything they would like to add? And I just wanted to, did I mention this last time, following what we do at the village board? Did I mention that?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so if you ever want to put a future agenda item on for consideration, you would just, you can tell Bart ahead of time, or you can just say that commission and I'd like to, and then say I'd like to make a motion to put this on a future agenda. Someone can second it with discussion, and then we vote, just so that, like the board, it's the group asking to discuss something rather than just individual commissioners, so it really helps a lot to go level. Yes?
Last spring, we did that priority exercise, and I think the planning commission has 6 or 7 or 8 priorities, but I think Bart was waiting for the board to say, these are your priorities, or, because you can only do so many.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering,
So it just.
should we go back to that list and say, let's work on this thing?
Well, here's the best part. So I just talked to our village manager, and she is going to begin working with the commission, especially the statutory commissions, which we are one of, the planning commission, to find out what from those lists you would like to be working on for next year. And so it sounds like we're just going, but this is really the start of us planning for which priorities. So that list will come back to us probably within the next meeting or
Yes, that is coming in April.
And
All
we'll
commissions
talk
are asked to
about
talk about in April.
what as a group we want to be working on. And this year, the committees are going to have a little more weight on what they want to work on, as long as we have, for statutory committees, as long as there's staff available. But Bart seems to be pretty receptive to.
So yeah, I'll bring back your accomplishments for the year, as well as your last year's list, and then we can open it for discussion of things. You guys did a great job last year. You recommended the most things of any commission or any board, so you can thank yourselves for being proactive that way. So we'll do the same thing this year. I will probably be a little more honest in my time availability with some of those things, but I just want to set expectations realistically, because I do CDA, do DERB, I do other things. So, but yeah, the conversation is expected to happen in April. I'll have materials in the packet that we can, review and go over, but that is currently the time frame that we were given this morning. So, April 30th, it sounds like.
Okay. And we kind of have a standing agreement, don't we, Bart, that you'll bring us something at least every meeting.
Yeah, there's plenty to work on. So, The only thing that we had discussed last time was that I wasn't gonna bring ordinance amendments if we didn't have an application. And so in this case, we didn't meet in February because we didn't have an application for any conditional use or something that was time sensitive. So I guess just moving forward, we do need to meet in April for this prioritization committee, but we'll just always need to confirm that if there are applications, how important a particular ordinance is to meet specifically on that, but that's a case-by-case decision that I can handle.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions on future agenda items or suggestions?
As the transportation study moves along, I mean, we continually have this issue with parking and, it came up today at the mental health clinic. So I assume there'll be some discussion of that, and that'll also come to planning commission to make some ordinance changes.
Thank you. I just wrote that on the top of my piece of paper, which is, should the planning commission be involved in the parking study? I'm going to recommend that because our scope during our RFP, we talked about zoning code changes eventually for parking.
In terms of commercial uses, that's definitely
Yep.
within the scope of the work, but no, yeah.
So just for that reason alone, I would assume when we have an advisory committee, it needs to coordinate, somehow the planning commission needs to be brought into the loop, so.
Yeah, but I'm meeting with the consultant next week to get his opinions on who he feels needs to be in there. I have my own opinions on it. We're gonna meet and discuss that, and then that's scheduled to go to the board on April 15th
Yes.
for the board to weigh in and approve the communications and management plan. So that, yes, if a plan commissioner is desired to be on there, we could have the president appoint a plan commissioner to be on that, or however that works out. But yeah, there will be consideration of zoning code changes within that study. This is my expectation, at least, that I would be shocked if you came back and that's perfect, so. You might not want,
See, it's really not all the time.
you might not want to pay them if that's the recommendation.
That's it, we selected the wrong one. Thank you, trustee Mento. Any other questions or discussion? If not, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So,
Say motion in a second. Any discussion? No. Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?